I heard voices downstairs while I was taking my afternoon nap. Thought it might be my daughter visiting. Then I heard her say, "The current occupant will be relocating to assisted living next month, so possession date is flexible." I walked to the top of the stairs and saw 3 people examining my living room, taking notes, discussing counter offers. My daughter saw me and went pale. "Mom, you're supposed to be at your sister's house." "I'm Margaret Sullivan, and I'm 73 years old. I've lived in this house for 42 years, raised my 3 children here, buried my husband from the living room after his funeral service 12 years ago. Every wall holds a memory, every room tells a story of the life I've built. This house isn't just property to me. It's my home. My sanctuary. The place I planned to live until I died." But to my daughter Jessica, it was apparently just real estate waiting to be sold. And she'd decided to sell it while I was still living in it. Let me take you back to that Thursday afternoon when I discovered my daughter had been showing my house to potential buyers behind my back. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. It started 3 weeks earlier with what seemed like a thoughtful suggestion. Jessica came over for coffee on a Sunday morning, bringing fresh croissants from the bakery I loved. "Mom, I've been thinking about your living situation," she said, adding cream to her coffee with that careful tone that meant she'd been planning this conversation. "What about it? You're here all alone in this big house. 4 bedrooms, 2 floors, all these stairs. At 73, don't you think it might be time to consider something more manageable?" "I manage perfectly fine, Jessica. I've been managing for 12 years since your father died." "I know, but things change as we age. What if you fell on these stairs? What if you needed help and no one was here?" "I have my medical alert bracelet. And I'm perfectly capable of navigating my own staircase. I'm just worried about you. That's all. Promise me you'll at least think about it." I promised to think about it because that's what mothers do to end uncomfortable conversations with their adult children. I didn't think Jessica was seriously suggesting I move. I thought she was just being an overly cautious daughter. I was wrong. 2 weeks later, Jessica called and asked if I could spend Thursday afternoon at my sister Helen's house. She mentioned she wanted to show you some old family photos she found. "I think it would be nice for you two to have some time together." It sounded reasonable. Helen and I were close, and she had mentioned finding some boxes from our mother's estate. So Thursday morning, I drove to Helen's house expecting an afternoon of nostalgia. Except Helen had no idea I was coming. "Margaret, this is a lovely surprise, but I don't have any photos to show you," Helen said when I arrived at her door. "Did Jessica tell you I did?" A cold feeling settled in my stomach. "Yes. She specifically said you wanted me to come over this afternoon." "That's odd. I haven't talked to Jessica in a couple weeks." We sat in Helen's kitchen drinking tea, both of us puzzled by Jessica's lie. Then my phone rang. It was my neighbor, Dorothy, who lived 3 houses down. "Margaret, I just saw a realtor's car pull into your driveway. Are you selling the house?" My blood went cold. "No. I'm not selling anything." "Well, there's a woman giving a tour to what looks like potential buyers. I can see them through your living room window." I thanked Dorothy, hung up, and looked at Helen. "Jessica is showing my house to buyers. That's why she wanted me out this afternoon." I drove home faster than I probably should have, my mind racing. How could Jessica do this? The house was in my name. She had no legal right to sell it. Unless she'd done something I didn't know about. When I pulled into my driveway at 2:15 p.m., there were 2 cars I didn't recognize parked on the street. I used my key to enter through the front door as quietly as possible. That's when I heard Jessica's voice coming from the living room. "The current occupant will be relocating to assisted living next month, so possession date is flexible. We can negotiate on some of the furniture if you're interested. The dining set is antique, probably worth keeping." I felt like I'd been punched. Current occupant. Not homeowner. Not my mother. Just an obstacle to be relocated. I walked to the staircase and climbed halfway up, positioning myself where I could see into the living room without being immediately visible. 3 people were examining my home like it was already theirs. A couple in their 50s, taking notes, and a woman in a business suit who was clearly the realtor. The kitchen was updated 8 years ago, Jessica was saying. Granite counters, new appliances. The upstairs has 4 bedrooms, all good sizes. And the basement is finished with plenty of storage. The man asked about the roof. Jessica answered with details about a replacement I'd done 6 years ago. She'd clearly prepared for this, memorized facts about my house like she was already its owner. What about the price? The woman asked. We've seen similar houses in this neighborhood listed for $420,000. We are asking $395 because of the motivated seller situation, Jessica said. My mother needs to move quickly for health reasons, so we are pricing it to sell fast. Health reasons. I'd never been healthier in my life. My last checkup 2 months ago had been perfect except for slightly elevated cholesterol that my doctor said was normal for my age. I couldn't stay silent anymore. I walked down the stairs, each step deliberate, and entered my living room. 4 faces turned toward me. The couple looked confused. The realtor looked uncomfortable. And Jessica went absolutely pale. Mom, she said, her voice strangled. You're supposed to be at Aunt Helen's house. Aunt Helen didn't have any photos to show me, Jessica. Because you lied to get me out of my own house. The couple exchanged glances. The realtor started gathering her papers. Jessica's mouth opened and closed without sound. I'm Margaret Sullivan, I said to the strangers in my living room. I own this house. I've lived here for 42 years. And I am not moving to assisted living or anywhere else. Mom, can we talk about this privately? Jessica's voice was desperate. No. These people deserve to know that you're trying to sell a house you don't own while the actual owner is standing right here telling you she has no intention of selling. The realtor found her voice. Mrs. Sullivan, I was told by your daughter that she has power of attorney and full authority to list this property. She absolutely does not. I've never given anyone power of attorney. Jessica's face went from pale to red. Mom, we talked about this. You agreed you needed to downsize. I agreed to think about it. That's not the same as agreeing to sell my home while you lie to get me out of it for showings. The couple was already moving toward the door, clearly wanting no part of this family drama. The realtor hesitated, then looked at Jessica. Miss Sullivan, I'm going to need to see documentation of your power of attorney before we proceed with any more showings. I have it. I just need to find the paperwork. You don't have it because it doesn't exist, I said firmly. This showing is over. Everyone needs to leave my house now. They left. The couple practically ran to their car. The realtor followed more slowly, shooting Jessica a look that promised a very uncomfortable conversation later. And then it was just me and my daughter, standing in my living room, the air thick with betrayal and lies. How could you? I asked, my voice shaking. How could you try to sell my house without my permission? Mom, you're not thinking clearly about your future. This house is too much for you. That's my decision to make, not yours. Is it? Because you're 73 years old living alone in a 4-bedroom house you can barely maintain. I maintain it perfectly well. The lawn service comes weekly. I have a handyman for repairs. I manage everything just fine. For now. But what happens in 5 years? 10 years? You'll end up falling down these stairs or having a medical emergency with no one around to help. So your solution is to lie to me, trick me into leaving my house, and sell it out from under me. Jessica's expression hardened. Someone has to think about the practical realities here. You're too emotionally attached to this house to see that staying here isn't sustainable. This is my home, Jessica. I raised you here. Your father died here. Every memory I have is in these walls. Memories don't prevent falls or heart attacks. Get out. What? Get out of my house. Now. Jessica grabbed her purse and jacket. At the door, She turned back. This isn't over, Mom. You need help whether you want to admit it or not. After she left, I sat alone in my living room trying to understand what had just happened. My daughter had lied to me, lied to realtors, and tried to sell my house while I was still living in it. The betrayal felt physical, like something vital had been cut. That evening, I called my lawyer, Harold Bennett, who'd handled my estate planning years ago. I explained what Jessica had done. Margaret, this is serious, Harold said after a long pause. If Jessica is telling realtors she has power of attorney, that's fraud. And if she's trying to sell your house without your consent, that's attempting to steal property. Can she actually do that? Sell the house without me knowing? Not legally, no. The house is in your name alone. Any sale would require your signature on multiple documents. But I'm concerned about how far she's already gone. Tomorrow, I want you to come to my office. We need to make sure your estate documents are ironclad and that Jessica has no legal avenue to do this. The next morning, I sat in Harold's office reviewing documents. Everything was in order. I owned my house free and clear. No one had power of attorney. Jessica couldn't legally sell anything without my explicit written consent. But, Harold said carefully, I need to ask you something uncomfortable. Has Jessica ever suggested you might be experiencing cognitive decline? She mentioned I was getting forgetful once or twice. But I'm not. I'm sharp as ever. I ask because one way adult children try to gain control of their parents' assets is by having them declared incompetent. If Jessica could get a doctor to say you're not capable of managing your own affairs, she could petition the court for guardianship. The possibility chilled me. Can she do that? It's difficult but not impossible. Which is why I'm recommending you get a full cognitive assessment from a neurologist. Not because I think you need it, but to have documentation that you're fully competent to manage your own affairs. I followed Harold's advice. Dr. Patricia Chen, a neurologist, put me through 3 hours of cognitive testing. Memory tests, problem-solving exercises, mental acuity assessments. A week later, she called with results. Mrs. Sullivan, your cognitive function is excellent for your age. Actually, excellent for any age. Your memory, reasoning, and mental processing are all well above average. I'm happy to provide written documentation of these findings. Armed with that documentation, I felt more secure. But I also felt sad. Sad that I needed a neurologist's report to prove to my own daughter that I was capable of living my own life. Jessica called 2 weeks after the failed showing. Mom, I think we got off on the wrong foot. Can we talk? We met at a coffee shop, neutral territory. Jessica brought printouts of assisted living facilities. I've been researching options, she said, sliding the papers across the table. Some of these places are really nice. Community activities, meals provided, medical staff on site. You'd have so much less to worry about. Jessica, I'm not moving into assisted living. We've been over this. Mom, be reasonable. You're living alone in a house that's far too big. Something's going to happen. You mean something might happen? There's a difference. I'm trying to protect you. By lying to me? By trying to sell my house behind my back? She had the decency to look uncomfortable. I was trying to help you see that change isn't as scary as you think. By forcing it on me without my consent? That's not help, Jessica. That's control. Someone needs to make smart decisions here. I am perfectly capable of making my own decisions. I have a lawyer and a neurologist who will both confirm that. Jessica's expression shifted. You saw a neurologist? Yes. And Dr. Chen confirmed I'm cognitively sound and fully capable of managing my own affairs. So whatever you're planning, whatever you think you can do to force me out of my home, it won't work. I wasn't planning anything. You were already planning it. The assisted living talk, the suggestions I'm forgetful, trying to sell my house. You were building a case to have me declared incompetent. That's not true. Isn't it? Jessica, I know you think you're helping. But what you're actually doing is trying to take control of my life because you've decided I'm too old to manage it myself." She stood up abruptly. "Fine. Stay in your house alone. When you fall down those stairs and lie there for hours before anyone finds you, don't say I didn't try to prevent it." She left. And I sat alone with my coffee, wondering how my relationship with my daughter had become this broken. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. It's been 8 months since that Thursday afternoon when I found strangers in my living room. 8 months since Jessica tried to sell my house, while I was supposedly at my sister's looking at photos that didn't exist. Jessica and I don't talk much anymore. She calls every few weeks, conversations that are polite but strained. She stopped suggesting I move. I think she finally understands I meant what I said. I'm still in my house. Still managing just fine. I've made some changes, though. Installed handrails in the bathroom. Got a medical alert system that calls emergency services if I fall. Set up a schedule with Helen where we check in with each other daily. Not because Jessica was right about my needing help, but because being cautious isn't the same as being helpless. My other children, Daniel and Emily, were horrified when they learned what Jessica had tried to do. Daniel, who lives out of state, flew in to make sure I was okay. Emily helped me update all my legal documents to specify that under no circumstances should Jessica have any authority over my estate or medical decisions. That hurt, putting that in writing. But it was necessary. Last week, I ran into the realtor who'd been showing my house that afternoon. She apologized profusely. "Mrs. Sullivan, I had no idea. Your daughter seemed very official, had all the property information, talked about your health issues. I should have verified ownership before listing the property." "Yes, you should have. But Jessica was convincing, I'm sure. For what it's worth, I've reported the incident to our licensing board. What she did was fraud, and other realtors need to know to verify power of attorney claims before proceeding with listings." I appreciated that. Not because I want Jessica punished, but because no other elderly person should have their home listed for sale without their knowledge. My house is my sanctuary again. But it's changed too. Every room reminds me not just of happy memories, but of the afternoon I discovered my daughter saw me as an obstacle instead of a person. As a current occupant instead of her mother. The stairs Jessica worried about? I climb them 20 times a day. The maintenance she said I couldn't handle? I manage it with help from professionals I've hired. The isolation she feared? I have more social activities than she does. Being 73 doesn't mean being helpless. It doesn't mean giving up control of your life to adult children who think they know better. It means making informed decisions about your own future and refusing to let anyone take that agency away. Jessica thought selling my house was about protecting me. But what she was really protecting was her own anxiety about my aging, her own fear of something bad happening that she couldn't prevent. She wanted control because control feels safe. But safety bought through lies and betrayal isn't safety. It's imprisonment. I'm staying in my house. Not because I'm stubborn, though I am. Not because I'm in denial about aging, though Jessica probably thinks so. I'm staying because this is my home, and I have every right to live in it until I decide otherwise. My decisions. My life. My home. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments.